Alright everyone, welcome back to yet another video, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience with 35mm film. This is my 50 roll review. So a little bit of context about my creative journey for people that don't know who I am. I'm a creator here in Indianapolis. Predominantly am video focused, at least for commercial and professional work. And I would like to say I use photography as a way to recharge creatively, whether that's street photography, whether that's family vacation or, road trips, you name it. In December, I picked up a Leica M6. And for people that don't know, I picked up a Leica Q3 earlier on in 2024. Really just fell in love with the whole process and just the minimalistic factor. So one of the main reasons why I picked up the Leica M6 among all of the other film options is because if the film somehow got messed up, or the negatives or the scans didn't appear right, or didn't load it properly, I wanted to know that it was user error. I wanted a reliable camera. All of these film cameras are super old. They are older than me, so I wanted something that I could heavily rely on and just mitigate all of the unknown variables, especially how volatile film is. My experience with film started after college. This was when film emulations were starting to get popular, where kind of like the grain aspect and creating digital photos and turning it kind of into film was getting popular. And so I picked up a old Minolta camera, and my experience was definitely pretty negative. Didn't know exactly what I was doing, followed some YouTube tutorials, but just really never pulled at me the way that it did in December. This video is really kind of a comprehensive review on the M6, but then also my experience with 35mm film. So picking up the M6 was a huge investment for me, not only financially, but also just time and energy to learn more about analog film. I shoot predominantly digital, so everything was super instant for me, especially, ever since I started. Everything was super easy and accessible. With film, there's a huge learning curve with it. So for the first month or two of owning the M6, I really was intentional about taking it everywhere that I went. Not that I shot it like digital by any means, but I wasn't afraid to take the shot. I really learned about, what a rangefinder is, the steep learning curves behind it, with the focusing, light metering, and then also the M6's loading process. So starting at the loading process of the M6, for people that don't know, it's a little bit different than, your ordinary film camera. It's more of a dropping system. So, what you're going to do is, remove this plate, and then you're actually going to drop in a roll of film, line it up with the teeth marks, and make sure that everything is loaded properly, and also winding properly with the wheel on the left as well. So after that, you set your ISO on the back, and then you're ready to shoot. So this process didn't come easy to me, as my second roll, I completely messed up the loading system, where I thought the film caught on the mechanism, and I thought it was actually winding and advancing the film as I went, but it turned out that I didn't load it properly. And so while I thought that I was taking all these beautiful images, everything was black because I didn't advance the film properly on the M6. And so ever since then, I made sure to properly learn and properly load the M6 and make sure that it's advancing before closing up the camera. So besides loading the film, the two biggest learning curves of mine was the light metering and also the rangefinder focusing system. The focusing system, I like to call it almost archaic, because you you have to line up 2 ghost images, and once the 2 ghost images are lined up, that's when you know that you've hit critical focus. And especially since I'm coming from a digital side where autofocus in any camera nowadays is just spot on, so pulling focus every single shot became very tiring for me, and I really just had to get used to, okay, like what aperture am I shooting at, what shutter speed am I shooting at, and really learning how to zone focus. So after I hit critical focus, then we get to light metering and composition. So light metering was a huge task as well, because again, with the M6, it's a very simple system where you have 2 arrows, and those arrows tell you if the image is under or overexposed. And when both arrows are pointing at each other, that's when you know that it's properly exposed. However, the first roll I shot, I did not know that I was supposed to overexpose color negative film. And so the first roll I put through the M6, it was extremely underexposed. It was incredibly grainy and super discouraging, especially my second roll wasn't much better. So let's just say that you do get like the shot, or the image turns out great. Besides purchasing the roll of 36 exposures, then you have to develop the whole entire thing. And unless if you're a wizard like Joey Trowbridge, or super interested about the science behind developing, which I do think is important for a film photographer to understand the process of developing, but a lot of people, they don't have time to do that, or they don't have the passion to do it. So they end up, shipping it off, or getting it developed somewhere else, and that's a whole additional cost, especially with the economy right now. Film is just getting more expensive. Other than actually taking the damn photo, you have so many more expenses that oftentimes price photographers out. So for me, like right now, like I have a bunch of mailing packages for my film that have a nice little bubble wrap in them, but so you have to pay for shipping costs, you have to pay for shipping labels, you have to wait for your film to arrive to the lab, so it's just a lot of different moving parts with film development. And after you take the beautiful 36 exposures that I believe that you guys will. Topic of the price of film, I thought it would be knowledgeable for someone going into film or wanting to go into film to really just have a sobering conversation about the price. Now they're a little bit extreme just because like I mentioned before, I really went in the deep end. On average, I like shooting Portra 400 or 800, but there has been a lot of like black and white, which is a lot cheaper than Portra 800. So because this is a super scientific calculation, let's just say like $18 per roll. So if you go 18 times 50, we're sitting at $900 for just buying the film, right? And then also development, depending on where you go, whether you want high quality scans, whether you want 4K scans, whether you want TIFF files. It kind of differentiates on where you choose to go. Everyone has their personal preference. So 15 times 17, then you have $850 for development. So you got $900 in film, and then you have $850 in development fees, and that's not including shipping or packaging like I mentioned earlier. None of that either, or the emotional distress of going through TSA or sending out your shipment of film through USPS, and you just never know if it's going to show up or not. So with the film and also development fees, it's $1,750. Now with, you know, shipping and everything, you could probably round it out to at least $1,800 for 50 rolls. Now I went through 50 rolls in 6 months, so it's roughly around 8 rolls a month. I like to be a little bit more consistent with my filming, just because I feel like film, you have a lot of momentum. So as soon as you get your scans back, you already have the next wave on its way, just because I feel like, again, you lose momentum because you can't see your images. So you constantly have to be reminded why you're shooting film. Film photography was exactly what I needed a year ago. I was doing digital work commercially, but also trying to find a creative outlet. It's a little ironic, but I think film photography actually saves me some time in the back end, because I'm not worried about editing. I'm not really worried about the story, because the story was already crafted when I took the shot. And so it's really just almost a moment of reflection whenever I get my scans back. One of the things that I didn't expect about film is that it's helped me analyze a scene better. Especially in my line of work, it's a lot of different scenes, and so when you're changing scenes, you almost can guess what your light meter is going to change to. You could just switch, especially your shutter speed or aperture, based on the changing of scenes. And that surprisingly has translated into digital, which makes the whole entire digital scene way easier because you can see your exposure on the screen. I think the last part that I want to talk about is how contagious film is. I think film is way more contagious than digital, and what I mean by that is people see the passion a lot more with film. I think when you share your scans, or when you share how you nailed this exposure just perfectly, I think it inspires people to do the same, and it inspires people to go out and try it themselves. I think that's why it's so cool when people print out their work, or, you know, when people show each other their film negatives or their scans, because it's such a authentic behind the scenes of their creativity. And that's what I wanted to do with this frame. I think it's just a reminder to embrace the imperfections. My first roll was far, far from perfect, but yet that's what makes it so fun, just to frame up and really just embrace it. I might be doing a 50 roll review on the Mamiya 7 and my medium format experience, so stay tuned for that. Go check out the blend, and I'll see you guys in the next one.